Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of reviewing a single product, we're building and reviewing a complete sim racing setup from the ground up. We're covering 5 pieces of hardware: the Playseat Instinct cockpit, the Simagic P1000 pedals, the Moza R9 direct drive wheelbase, and both the Moza KS and Moza KS Pro steering wheels, which we will be comparing directly against each other. This video is aimed primarily at people who are new to sim racing. I want to give you the real picture, what these products do well, where they fall short, and whether the price tag is justified or not. Let's get into it. The Playseat Instinct arrives very well packed, with bolts and tools, and also includes an instruction booklet. The assembly is manageable in 1 hour or 2 hours if you take it easy. The first impression out of the box is that the quality is exceptional. The frame is built from aluminum alloy and is powder coated with black paint for durability. The assemble weighs around 22.5 kilograms and it's not as heavy as it looks. This tells you something about how clever the design is. Very robust but light. The dimensions are 168, 61.5 and 73.5 centimeters. So this is not a compact product, but is quite manageable in a small area, like in my case. It needs a dedicated space, but you can always move it a bit around if you are into deadlifting. The seat padding uses Playseat's ModuFoam system, which is a modular foam inserts that can be repositioned or removed to customize lumbar and shoulder support independently. The shelf itself is a fixed model bucket with a deep enveloping shape. The material is polyester, functional, cleanable and adequate, though not the most premium feel at the surface level, but very useful for long endurance races. You will sweat and that needs to be cleaned. Don't be nasty. What immediately stands out is the officially licensed Formula 1 design. This cockpit was developed in partnership with F1 teams to replicate the seat and position of an actual Formula 1 car. That is not marketing language. The reclining angle, the leg position, and the relationship between your hips and the pedals feels genuinely F1 inspired. However, I would say that this seat is a mix between a GT bucket and an actual Formula 1, as the pedal height is closer to the ground than to your chest, therefore making it a mix between the Formula 1 driving position and a GT driving position, which allows you to use it for both cars in a comfortable way. The Simagic P1000. These are high-end and you feel that the moment you lift the box. Out of the packaging, the build quality is immediately striking. The entire structure is CNC machined aluminum alloy, anodized and polished. The precision is visible. What makes the P1000 particularly interesting for beginners is what's inside the box alongside the pedals, a set of brake elastomers. These are rubber polymer inserts that sit inside the brake mechanism and determine how the pedal resistance feels under your foot. Swapping a softer elastomer and the brake feels progressive, closer to a road car. Swap to a firmer one and you're pushing harder to reach maximum braking force, much closer to a real race car or a Formula 1. It's a simple system, takes about 2 minutes to change and makes a genuine difference in how you drive. Pedals in the P1000F version also include a clutch. Some people also add a haptic engine to the pedals to imitate the real vibrations of the ABS, of the gas pedal, and so on. For me, they are not worth it for a beginner, really worth it or more interesting if you are more focused on the details than into the racing itself. More beneficial if you have a high-end rig which would benefit from these sort of details. Moza R9. The R9 is compact, smaller than most people expect when they first see it, and that's intentional. Moza designed it around what they call a min-max principle: extract maximum torque output from the smallest possible form factor. The housing is aviation-grade aluminum alloy, lightweight, durable and corrosion resistant. Inside we have a servo motor, no belts or gears in between. That direct connection is what defines a direct drive wheelbase, and why the force feedback quality is fundamentally different from belt or gear-driven systems. Lastly, to finish with this section of the video, we have the Moza KS and KS Pro. Both wheels are 300mm butterfly style GT wheels and share the same general silhouette. The structural differences become apparent when you look closely though, but we'll break those down in detail when we go to the comparison section. Moving to the second section of the video, we have the build quality and the first impressions. The Playseat Instinct driving position is something in between the F1 seat and the GT seat. If you've only ever used a gaming chair, the sitting angle will feel unusual at first. Within a few sessions, it will become really natural. The X-Adapt quick release system handles well height and distance adjustments. You loosen the clamps, reposition the support along the vertical tube, and relock. It is fast to adjust between drivers of different heights. The cockpit accommodates drivers from 120 centimeters to 220 and up to 122 kilograms in weight. The pedal plate offers full adjustment for angle, height and distance, though you'd require an Allen key to do these adjustments. For 1000, the plate is solid and does not flex under hard braking inputs, especially if you have it at the lowest height possible. The Playseat Instinct is designed purely around single-seater racing. There is no shifter compatibility. The layout and geometry simply doesn't accommodate to one. If you plan to run a sequential or H-pattern shifter, this is not the right cockpit for you. For open wheels in racing, GT racing with paddle shifters or any setup without a physical shifter, it's absolutely excellent. I want to address something I kept reading in reviews before buying this. People saying the seat is uncomfortable for long sessions. I genuinely don't know what cockpit those people were sitting in, because I've done 4-hour endurance races in this thing and walked away without any complaints. It's comfortable, full stop. Shipping was also a pleasant surprise. It came from Spain to the Netherlands, where I live at the moment, in half a week, faster than I expected for something this size. And on pricing, I'd recommend checking Amazon before going through the official Playseat website. When I bought mine, Amazon was noticeably cheaper for the same product. It's worth doing a quick comparison before you commit. Something important to mention as well is how solid the metal bars are. In normal driving conditions, the frame does not move at all. The only flex I noticed was a very slight up and down movement when I deliberately tried to induce it. There is not a movement that occurs naturally during sim racing, so in practice it simply never happens. The cockpit feels planted. The pedal adjustment system also deserves a specific mention, especially for anyone running a load cell set. The adjustment mechanism is sturdy, precise and stays locked in position. I was genuinely impressed given the price point. The modular padding, while functional, is the weakest element of the build. The cushions are adequate but feel generic compared to the quality of the frame and overall construction. Reviewers across the board make the same observation. Finally, no shifter support, which is worth repeating clearly so nobody buys this expecting to add one later. The distance of the seat can be adjusted really easily. The pedals height needs an Allen key, as so does the base of the steering wheel. What is easy to change is the distance between the steering wheel and you and the seat itself. This you can arrange only with the clamp and the screws. Simagic P1000. The P1000's 12-bit sensor resolution gives you 4096 distinct input positions across the travel range of each pedal. To put that into context, many entry-level pedal sets operate at 8-bit, which is 256 positions. The fidelity difference in how the sim reads your inputs, particularly under braking, is really significant. The brake pedal supports a 100 kg load cell sensor, which means the game reads braking force rather than pedal travel. Combined with the elastomers, you can configure the brake to require a very specific amount of physical force to reach 100% braking, which over time trains genuine muscle memory consistent with real driving techniques. The pedal spacing, height, pitch angle, and individual travel are all adjustable. For a beginner building the first proper rig, the fact that you can reconfigure this precisely means the setup grows with you as your driving style develops. The R9's 21-bit magnetic encoder divides a full rotation into over 2.09 million steps, delivering a positional resolution of 0.00017 degrees. In practical terms, the wheelbase can detect and communicate the smallest inputs back to the simulator and vice versa. Force feedback detail at this level is what allows you to feel road surface changes, tire slip, and weight transfer, not just generic vibrations. 9 Nm of peak torque is the headline spec. That puts it comfortably in the mid-range direct drive category. A professional Formula 2 car generates steering forces of roughly 15 to 25 Nm at the limit, so the R9 will replicate that at full load. But for sim racing purposes, and particularly for a beginner to intermediate setup, 9 Nm is more than sufficient to communicate meaningful feedback without being overwhelming or physically damaging to use. The intelligent temperature control system monitors the motor and electronics in real time and adjusts cooling strategies accordingly. In practice, this means consistent performance across long sessions without thermal throttling. Moving on to the Moza KS build quality. quality. The KS is constructed from carbon fiber reinforced composite on the frame, reinforced with high-strength steel at the quick-release connection point. The grips are TPA rubber, corrosion-resistant and grippy with or without gloves. The wheel weighs 1,220 grams. A heavier wheel reduces the clarity of the force feedback signal reaching your hands. The KS low weight is a genuine performance advantage, not just marketing point. The 10 RGB buttons feature an ultra-short 0.25mm travel, which means actuation is near instant. The anodized aluminum paddle shifters use 0.03mm pressure hole sensors, magnetic, contactless, and durable. Moving to the Moza KS Pro, the KS Pro shares the carbon fiber reinforced composite structure but adds considerably more to the front face. The backplate, front plate, and frame all use the same high rigidity carbon composite and aluminum alloy combination. The forged carbon magnetic paddles are a step above the KS, not just in material but in feel as well. The whole sensor actuation consisted of thousands of inputs and notably quieter than traditional mechanical paddles. 3-inch HD integrated screen communicates via a wire conductive slip ring through the quick release, which means no wireless latency, no batteries, no dropouts. It's instant. Moving to the third section of the video, we have the compatibility and the setup. The Playseat Instinct is compatible with all major wheelbase brands out of the box: Moza, Fanatec, Thrustmaster, and Logitech. The R9 mounts with a standard 4-hole button mount on the wheel plate. No adapters, no modifications required, nothing. Both the Moza KS and the KS Pro connect to the R9 via Moza's quick release system, and the wheel swapping takes seconds and the connection is mechanically solid with no play. Configure them through their respective software, which is Moza P1000 for the R9 and wheels and Sim Pro Manager for the Simagic pedals. Moza P1000 deserves a specific mention. It comes with preloaded game profiles for Assetto Corsa, iRacing, and some other games. You can be driving with properly configured force feedback settings within minutes of installation. For the fourth section, we have comfort and ergonomics. As we mentioned before, the Playseat Instinct is actually really comfortable for the price. Your arms fold naturally to the wheel, your legs reach the pedals at a realistic angle, and the lumbar support keeps you lower back in a neutral position during extended sessions. The material of the paddings holds up well over long stints. Heat dissipation is genuine. After 90-minute sessions, there's no significant heat buildup in the surface. Digestibility means multiple drivers of different heights can use the same cockpit without permanent reconfiguration, though sometimes you will require Allen keys. The Simagic P1000, once configured to your foot size and driving style, disappear beneath you, which is the goal, is the objective. The adjustable pitch angle on the brake pedal is particularly useful to use with socks only or also with shoes, and the elastomer system means you can set the brake resistance to a level that's consistent with the physical effort you want to apply every lap. Now we come to the moment where the Moza KS and the KS Pro diverge the most. The KS offers 70 programmable input signals across 3 rotary encoders, 2 thumb encoders, and 2 joysticks, 10 RGB buttons, and dual clutch paddles. The layout is clean and intuitive, and every control is easily reachable without repositioning your hands. For a beginner, this is the correct amount of complexity, enough to manage brake bias, traction control, ABS, and in-game menus without feeling overwhelmed. KS Pro, however, provides 5 rotary encoders, including 4 12-position switches and 1 8-position switch in the middle, 2 thumb encoders, 10 RGB buttons, 2 rear buttons, and 2 7-way funky switches. Add the HD screen and the KS Pro becomes a genuinely dense control surface. For an experienced sim racer who wants to map every car parameter to a physical control, the KS Pro is exceptional. For someone who is still learning the basics, the volume of inputs can initially be distracting rather than helpful. Moving on to the P1000 pedals, the main perk of this is the high-end quality of its materials. The elastomer system is genuinely clever and makes the brake feel adjustable without buying new hardware. The 100kg load cell and 12-bit resolution place these in performance territory well above their cost. Fully modular, you can add haptic sensors, a hydraulic brake module, or RGB lighting without replacing the pedal set. My personal take, I'll be direct, these are the best pedals I've ever used across every single rig I've ever tried. I will not swap them for anything else on the market right now unless it's way above in price. The build quality, the precision of the load cell, the aesthetic, it reminds me of Formula 1 and racing, and I absolutely love them. The adjustment options deserve specific attention. You can change the distance of the pedal set from the seat, the rotation angle, it's overall amazing. If you're on the fence about the P1000s or something else, just jump over the fence, keep these ones. The main disadvantages, if we look for any disadvantage, is that the Sim Pro Manager software has a learning curve and can be temperamental, particularly with third-party apps. Some users have reported compatibility issues with SyncHub for the haptic features and some other things. For a pedal set at this level, the software experience should be smoother than it currently is. However, for me it's not a specific problem as I don't go that in depth with my pedals. Moving to the Moza R9. In my opinion, this is a perfect wheelbase. I wouldn't go to the 12 Newton meter as most likely I would never use so much force. For some people it would be useful to have higher details thanks to the extra force of the wheelbase. My personal take, the R9 is absolutely amazing. If you are starting, it's way more than above of anything you will ever try. There's nothing similar to the Moza R9 in terms of price. In general, Moza has the highest quality for the price, so I would recommend it in anything that you buy for your rig. One of the major advantages of this wheelbase is that the motor generates low frequency vibrations that travel through the wheel, through the cockpit, and you actually feel the engine. You can feel the engine when you rev up, when you hit a curb. It's absolutely incredible. Not just in your hands, you feel it in your body. That's a level of immersion I wasn't fully prepared for, and it changes the experience in a way that's hard to explain until you actually feel it. The disadvantages, it's PC only in its native configuration. I've never tried a sim rig in an Xbox or a PS5, I don't know why you would do that to yourself, but it's not good if you play in console. Moving on to what's probably the main interest of the video, the comparison between the Moza KS and the KS Pro. The perks at around 249 euros, the value proposition of the Moza KS is absolutely incredible. We already talked about the materials, the weight and so on. You already know this wheel is really good if you are starting. The disadvantage is 3 rotary encoders only. It covers most needs but not all of the needs, especially when you become better in iRacing. No screen means you're relying entirely on your in-game HUD, and if your car doesn't have dashboard then you will not have the right data. While grips are functional, they won't feel as premium as Alcantara or other alternatives at a higher price point. Before I get into the wheel itself, I need to tell you how I actually ended up with the KS instead of the KS Pro, because it's a story. I'm not a reviewer, I'm just a user that is trying to make a video. I originally ordered the KS Pro through a retailer, everything legitimate, nothing exotic, and then I waited. 2.5 months. Dozens of emails. My KS Pro was sitting somewhere between a Chinese factory and my desk, held up by a combination of Trump's trade tensions with Iran, Hormuz, and what I can only describe as Moza having genuinely not anticipated how well these wheels were going to sell 2.5 months later. To be clear, the retailer I bought from was not at fault. They were stuck just like I was. The stock was sitting in China, the shipping routes were disrupted by geopolitical events that nobody in the sim racing industry or geopolitical industry had a contingency plan for, and Moza themselves simply hadn't prepared adequate inventory for the demand for a wheel that was clearly going to sell in large numbers, because let's be honest, it's a crazy price for this steering wheel. The stock management was poor. That part sits with Moza, not with anyone else. Eventually, as compensation for the wait, I was offered the Moza KS as an immediate alternative, with my own money actually, which is 100 euros cheaper than the Pro and was actually in stock. I accepted because at that point I would have accepted anything that arrived within the same century. So the KS, how is it? For the vast majority of sim racers, that is more than enough. I personally have rotaries assigned to fuel management and engine braking, which are two parameters that most iRacing cars don't even use, but that become genuinely relevant in titles like Assetto Corsa or other simulation-focused games. The point is, there are buttons on this wheel that I don't use at my current level. That's not a flaw, it's headroom for when you progress. The only scenario where I want more inputs is a very specific one. If you're running a highly configurable prototype or GT3, where you want dedicated physical controls for every single car parameter without double mapping anything, then that's where the steering wheel works perfect. In that case, 1 or 2 additional rotaries on the lateral sides of the wheel and perhaps 1 or 2 rear buttons would complete the picture, but for 90% of uses, this is absolutely sufficient. On ergonomics, the shape is excellent, the butterfly layout is wide and comfortable, and the silhouette has a real resemblance to the Red Bull RB6 from 2010, which is a distinctive wide rounded butterfly form. It looks good in the cockpit and it feels natural in your hands, especially during long sessions. Now, at 249 euros, it is extremely competitive, almost 100 euros cheaper than the KS Pro, but you feel where that saving comes from. The overall construction has a plastic quality to it that the price explains but doesn't fully excuse. The most noticeable place is the paddle shifters. The KS uses anodized aluminum paddles with Hall sensors. Technically solid, contactless, durable, but they flex slightly under pressure in a way that feels imprecise compared to the KS Pro forged carbon magnetic paddles, which are stiffer, heavier, and have a noticeably stronger and more satisfying magnetic return action, the KS paddles feel like a generation behind. If you've never used the KS Pro paddles, you won't necessarily notice, but side by side the difference is clear. If you come from something like the G27, G29, Moza KS is absolutely a world apart. The KS is genuinely competitive at this price point. I would not swap it for anything in the same category at this price, but if you can stretch the extra 100 euros to the Pro, then do it. Absolutely do it. Moving to the KS Pro. The perks: the KS Pro is built on the same 300mm butterfly platform as the KS, but it's a meaningfully different product. The control surfaces expand significantly, as we mentioned before, and the total programmable input makes it possible for you to manage nearly every car parameter with a dedicated physical control. The forged carbon magnetic paddle shifters are the single biggest tactile upgrade over the KS. Stiffer, more precise, with a stronger magnetic return action. The difference is immediately obvious if you've used both. These are paddles you trust completely under aggressive shifting. In terms of ergonomics, the steering wheel has a slight improvement over the KS. On the backside, it has a protuberation that allows you to hold the steering wheel more steadily than the KS Pro, which has a cylinder shape that doesn't really adapt to your fingers. My personal take on the KS Pro: for the price, which is around 329 euros, this wheel is very close to perfect. The screen is a genuine quality of life improvement. Having gear position, lap delta, tire temperature visible on the wheel means your eyes stay on track rather than hunting your monitor, and the ability to fully customize screen displays and how it looks is a significant and underrated advantage. The one real criticism is size. At 3 inches, the display is on the smaller side. You can fit a huge amount of information at the same time, so you need to be deliberate about what you choose to show. That said, I would not change this wheel for anything else at this price point, even 100 euros more. Even with the extra inputs I personally don't use at all, this steering wheel is absolutely perfect. This wheel has more than room enough to grow with you as your sim racing techniques develop. Disadvantages: some of the smaller controls, particularly the rotary encoder housings, use plastic construction that feels inconsistent with the premium positioning of the wheel. At 329 euros, you expect more aluminum throughout. The screen, while useful, is physically small and requires thoughtful configuration to get the most out of it. The Playseat Instinct stays between 499 and 599 euros. The Simagic P1000 with the 2-pedal version is between 299, 349, sometimes up to 400 euros. The R9 is between 399 and 449. Moza KS is at the moment 249 to 279, and the Moza KS Pro is 299 to 329 euros. It can go up to 350. As a complete package with the KS, you're looking at roughly 1,350 euros to 1,650 depending on region and configuration. That is a meaningful investment, but it puts you into hardware that legitimately changes how you interact with a simulator. The difference between this level of gear and a 200 entry level is not incremental, it's categorical. Force feedback at this resolution, pedal feel at this fidelity, and a cockpit that is rigid collectively change what you can learn from a simulator. You start developing real braking technique, real weight transfer awareness, and real muscle memory. The verdict: for a beginner building their first serious sim rig, this combination is strong, with no obvious weak links. The Playseat Trophy is a proven cockpit, the Simagic P1000s are exceptional pedals. You could even go one category lower than these ones and go maybe to some pedals from Moza. The Moza R9 is the right wheelbase for this tier, and between the two wheels, I would still choose the Moza KS Pro. I find it extremely useful to make that 100 euros extra effort and get the better steering wheel. Both are excellent, neither will disappoint. Thanks for watching. If you have questions about any specific part of this setup, drop them in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Links to everything are in the description below, and see you on the next one.